It's a team built all entirely of women by design and mostly moms, which allows us to be both empathetic and fierce for our clients and our communities. And so we felt like creating a brand for the giving that we did would really empower more people. And so we called it Community on Purpose because we really believe that community happens on purpose. You can get an encyclopedia of knowledge delivered directly back to you. But I think if you're just in the business of selling knowledge, it's going to be difficult for you in the coming revolution.
Welcome back to Real Estate Leadership Unlocked. I'm Debbie Lariviere, founder of Monter Coaching, where we work with brokerage owners and team leaders to build profitable, scalable businesses. Today, we're talking with someone who truly leads on purpose, Mindy Jones, owner and team lead of the Mindy Jones real estate team in Chandler, Arizona, certified coach with Phil Jones' organization, Exactly What to Say, and founder of the nonprofit Community on Purpose. Her team helps more than 150 families per year. She equips women in real estate to thrive, and through her nonprofit, she partners with local organizations to give back in significant ways. Additionally, she founded On Purpose Strategies to help others cultivate curiosity, empathy, and trust in leadership. Somehow, she does it all while raising her son. This is a conversation about business growth, grit, community, and what it means to lead on purpose. Take a listen. Don't forget to subscribe. Welcome to the show, Mindy. I am so excited to have you here with me today. I am constantly wowed by your resume and super excited to be diving into what we fondly refer to as the 3 buckets of on purpose. Diving into your real estate team success, communities on purpose, and on purpose strategies. But before we get there, I'd love for you to give us a little peek into your career journey and how you've transpired and transitioned through the real estate industry, and we'll take it from there.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Any opportunity that I have to talk about how the 3 main pillars of my life today all intersect and get to use that word on purpose and that idea of being on purpose. It really brings me so much joy. I have a 6-year-old son, and we just had a conversation this morning about what a life on purpose means. It's been such a fun journey with him as I've grown, he's grown me. He's like the best medicine I could have ever been gifted. But my journey obviously began long before him. A lot of times we'll talk about things about being in community or connection today on purpose. And that all started for me very young. I started a peer mediation group when I was in 2nd grade. And so I was that kid on the playground who just wanted to make sure everybody felt seen and heard and be able to use some skills that I had accumulated in my long years as a 2nd grader that I felt that I could help people with. But I really think it was the beginning of the ideas of this empowerment journey that I've been on. And I was in several different businesses prior to getting into real estate, but I've been in real estate for the last 15 years. I was in the nonprofit sector professionally before that, and now have been running the Mindy Jones Group, which is a residential real estate team here in the Valley for well over a decade. It's a team built all entirely of women by design and mostly moms, which allows us to be both empathetic and fierce for our clients and our community. So we also started a nonprofit organization a couple of years ago called Community on Purpose, which I know we'll get to talk about today. We serve anywhere between 100 and 200 families a year through real estate, just depending on the makeup of our team, and match that with serving dozens of organizations here in the areas that we serve, supporting women and families and youth organizations and really trying to give people the best leg up that we can through education and support and really community, which I think is what we'll continue to come back to.
Yeah, I love that. Well, when you think about that 100 to 200 families a year and still all the other things, what's been your drivers for success as you've grown the real estate team? One, for consistency, and two, layering in your other pillars with the giving back and organizations.
Yeah, I think consistency, you mentioned it, is a big one, right? So we don't operate on having shiny object syndrome. We stick to what we know works. And we're also looking for connection. So another good kind of buzzword in there for the way that we operate and do business, which is really connection and community. So we've built a platform where agents are not chasing after the next transaction, but rather looking how to make the biggest impact in people's lives that they can. And we do that by serving through real estate and community. And we do that consistently, the same processes over and over again. We are agile in the sense that we can serve the community of the moment and we can adjust when things change in the area, be it market or, situations or needs for our community. But having a truly a community based business that's purpose filled allows us to have structure, systems, processes on the back end. We stay connected internally with our team. We meet 3 times a week to make sure we are aligned and that we are aligned on behalf of our clients. And then we truly work to build sustainable communities through real estate and the nonprofit work that we do.
Yeah, that's incredible. The meeting first consistency, but then meeting consistency. I think oftentimes as we're growing larger teams or teams that are doing more transactions, we lose that focus of staying in alignment together. It becomes your goals or their goals or his goals or her goals, not so much the summation of goals where you're able to continue to stay in front of all of your team members as well as your clients. And so that's huge that you guys are still embracing that community within your own organization to keep everyone moving forward. Now, I know you
Absolutely. I think
go ahead.
there's a piece of that really that revolves around the importance of communication, and good communication starts internal to your team. And I think one of the things that's always set us apart is the way that we communicate with our clients, not only the words that we choose, but ensuring that we're setting up the right environment to having the conversations, that we're preparing for the conversations, that we're respecting our clients' emotions going into and throughout the process, and we're anticipating their needs. But it's also the communication that we have internally and how we hold ourselves accountable and being authentic in the things that drive us and that will ensure that we're providing the best level of service possible. And I just don't think that you can do that without having consistency and clarity in how you communicate as a team.
Yeah. I love what you're saying here too, because so often, and we're usually on the receiving end of the phone call where the agent didn't process what they're calling to tell you, and it seems very emotional
Mhm.
versus preparing for what's next and strategizing how that conversation could go to benefit both sides of the transaction as well as the agents involved. So it is I love that you guys are practicing that. Now you mentioned moms that you work with women and moms. So tell
Mhm.
me, how has that shaped the culture within your team and the communities that you serve?
I think at the root of it, it ensures that we show up truly authentically because we are leaning into some of the most personal life experiences that we've had in order to help guide other people through, whether it's an easy transition for them, something they've done 100 times before, or something that this is the very first time that they've ever done it. What we're doing is we're tapping into both our emotional intelligence paired with our experience in the industry to provide the best experience that we can for our clients. I think that as moms, we can tap into both empathy and being fierce protectors. We can prioritize for our own business flexibility and agility and being able to problem solve. But it also pushes us, just like our children do, to constantly be the best version of ourselves. And when we have difficult situations between something that's happening with a client or their home sale, we have a space that we've dedicated within our team to be able to talk about it so that not only does the agent have an outlet for their own emotions, because they are certainly people too. And on my team, I have to teach them boundaries. I don't have to teach them empathy. And that's a blessing and a wonderful problem to have and a beautiful benefit for our clients. But in the space that I hold for them, in order for them to be the best version of themselves, they have to have the space to work through all of those same emotions too. And so I think creating a team that's truly built on a feminine leadership model, which leans into authenticity, empathy, agility, flexibility, um, we are able to not only provide a really good experience for our clients and fiercely protect them through a transaction with the ultimate level of education, but we're able to continually become the best versions of ourselves in that process.
Yeah. And as a mom and a full-time employer and employee to the real estate industry, I think I work for the real estate industry actually, is that ability to wear 6 different hats and never
Mhm.
mess up your hair. You just have to you just have to keep going. So when you think about and what I really appreciate that you're sharing is that consistency. That's one of our keywords, right? With the
Of course.
processes and systems that you all have set up. And so as we see the ever-changing real estate market, no day is the same day, no transaction is the same transaction. What are you all seeing as far as adopting change in your real estate team? Are you making changes? Are you just riding with the market? What are some of those strategies for those listeners out there who are building those teams at that 2 to 300 units a year as you grow?
For sure. I think the most important, the focus for our team has always been, but continues to be around communication. And I think what we're seeing for our market is that being unsure is becoming the norm. It is very easy to find information online, right? We have access to a variety of AI tools. You can plug your questions in, you can get an encyclopedia of knowledge delivered directly back to you. But I think if you're just in the business of selling knowledge, it's going to be difficult for you in the coming revolution, because what's really changed in terms of AI is that the emotional intelligence piece, the guidance piece, the not only synthesis of data, but the what do you do about it part, that is where the human element truly shines. And I think that there's so much information that is readily available and accessible to our clients that not only are they overwhelmed by having all of the options available at their fingertips, but they also don't know who to trust in order to give them guidance. And we know that people don't like to be told what to do, but they do like to be guided. And so I think one of the things that we have really focused on our team is being very intentional about the way that we educate consumers, how we meet them where they're at, how we continue to become more advanced in our ability to identify their level of knowledge, engagement, what's going to hinder them from making decisions, how to help them make better decisions them for themselves, how to identify what's important to them, how to help them prioritize their vision and their next steps, who they need to bring on. I find often that people have lost the ability to learn how to be resourceful. And I think a lot of that has come from the access of information at their fingertips. They don't look for trusted advisors anymore because they simply can Google the information or in the middle of the night try to figure out what's happening. And this creates a lot of anxiety and, in fact, makes it very difficult for people to feel confident in their decision making. And so I think as a team, what we're seeing is a lot of that, a lot of access to information. So we're not so much worried about publishing buyer guides anymore or seller guides anymore, or blogs on basic information about the process, or we're here to provide the context. And so I think the way that we are shifting is looking to see, where do people need the most guidance? Where are they turning to ask for questions? How can we ensure that we're showing up and meeting them where they're at? I think that's probably the biggest thing that I notice in the industry, and is what's changing in terms of what makes a professional real estate agent versus somebody who's just flying by the seat of their pants.
And again, you can't take the emotion out of the real estate transaction.
Mm-mm.
You can do that very easily. Like you said, Google search any of the different AI
Mhm.
platforms for different questions. Again, it doesn't tell you how to communicate that, or at what tone do we communicate this, and the delivery process for the
True.
clients getting into a real estate transaction all the way to coming out of a real estate transaction. I think that's just one of those pieces that, one, it's learned, and two, it's really heartfelt.
Yeah, and I think also we have to remember that the families that we help through this process, they were made up of whole people prior to them meeting us. They had to make decisions on their own. They had to evaluate what was important to them. They had to prioritize, and there's sometimes that the numbers just didn't work for them. And so I think sometimes, especially when you have a group of moms who are great at solving problems, right? One of the things that we have to make sure that we're doing is that we're remembering that people do things for their own reasons and not ours. And so a lot of the work that we're doing is to help them uncover what's important to them and where they want to get to, and then committing that that journey is then our journey, right? We take our fiduciary duty very seriously, and so our job throughout this process is to help them by removing whatever those barriers are along the way. And I think that takes a really high level of emotional intelligence, and nothing that they're teaching new real estate agents in school. It's a very different methodology than even experienced agents have been exposed to in their life. And it's very different than what people have learned in quote unquote traditional sales training, even. And so I think for us, it really starts by building a business that feels good, that we believe we're doing good in, and that we're constantly trying to get better at.
Yeah. Well, and I think that takes us really nicely into the second pillar for your business, communities on purpose, because this is such a large, impactful area where
Mhm.
you've been able to continue to grow through real estate and also give back, touch the emotional side, the empathetic side of different people within your community looking to do good, right? And so I'd love for you to share with us a little bit about what inspired communities on purpose, and what it is, how you employ that into your real estate transactions.
Yeah, absolutely. We've always been, as I said, a very purpose driven business, and we believe that we can make an impact by strengthening communities. And we do that through real estate and through giving back. We help people find connection and community by picking the right place to live and getting the resources that they need. And we had always done a lot of nonprofit work. But a couple of years ago, I felt like the one missing piece was that we didn't have a way for others to really feel empowered to be on that journey with us. So many of my agents will tell you that over the last decade, they volunteered in their first week of joining the Amy Jones group. So I knew we had done a good job of building giving as part of our culture. And people knew to expect that from us, both internally and externally. But oftentimes we would be doing drives, or we would be setting up volunteer projects, or we would be organizing things in the community. And we would have clients who would ask how they could get involved, or, if we were doing something, they wanted to know about it. And so we felt like creating a brand for the giving that we did would really empower more people. And so we called it Community on Purpose, because we really believe that community happens on purpose. Often you'll hear people say it happened organically or it felt natural. And I think what they're typically speaking to is alignment, right? They're doing activities that feel good to them. And so they're naturally connecting with people that are on the same page as they are. But community doesn't happen without people showing up. And so Community on Purpose was really created for people to see how accessible serving, giving, volunteering, putting a megaphone around the needs of the community and the organizations that are serving them, how accessible that can be when we show up and do it together.
Yeah. So take us back a little bit. If we have some listeners that think, yeah, I would love to be more philanthropic, I want
Mhm.
to find a cause and donate. How do you start the ball rolling? I mean, I hear you on the go sign up and volunteer or pick an organization, but how do you start the ball rolling to make this not just a business practice, but a life practice?
Yeah, I love it. It's one of my favorite questions because people do ask me that all the time. Like, I don't even know where to start, or I don't know how to get involved, or how do I teach my children to do this? And I think, like anything else that's important to you, one, you have to invest a little time into it, right? It doesn't have to take over your life and it doesn't have to, you don't have to overhaul everything that you do in your schedule. But if something is important to you, whether it's faith or exercise or spirituality or financial fitness, whatever it might be, it takes a little bit of time, right, and focus. And so I think when people first come to me and ask me how they would get involved, I would say first, what are the kinds of things that speak to your heart? Who are the people that you want to serve? For some people it's animals and pets. For other people, it's an issue area. And that could be because of something they experience that they want to make a difference in, or something that they're drawn to because it's so different than something that they've ever experienced. So it could be because it feels good. It could be because it means something. It could be because it's geographically important to you. So local businesses, local chambers, something that speaks to where you live, your community organization, your HOA, your nonprofit that serves right inside of your neighborhood or your church. And it could be something entirely different based on maybe a skill set. So I'll have people that are accountants by trade and they'll say, how can I use this skill that I have to give back? So I think the first piece is just to figure out what is the driver for you for giving and where do you want to start? Is it an issue area? Is it a geography? Is it a skill set? And then from there to find out who is already working in that space. And there's a few different ways that you can do that. If you're lucky enough to have an organization in your community, like Hands On, we have in Arizona called Hands On Greater Phoenix. They work with a variety of different nonprofits in the area, and you'll find these throughout the country in different ways and names. But they're just people that you can connect with that can give you kind of a pulse on what's happening in the nonprofit sector and where are their organizations giving back in the way that you want to serve. I also recommend starting with your chamber organization. So if you are interested in keeping things local or supporting local businesses, those organizations are really there to see the businesses in your community thrive. And so they become an awesome connector for finding opportunities to volunteer within your community. So I think that's number one. Number two is to figure out what kind of time do you want to allot to this venture? Do you want to volunteer once a year? Do you want to volunteer just once for a few hours and see what happens? There's no wrong way to do it. But I think taking a little time to figure out what feels good to you, and that might take a little trial and error, right? Sign up for a run in your neighborhood and volunteer for it. And then decide after that, did that feel good to you? Did it feel good because it was the cause? Would you rather be somewhere where you get to touch and feel the people you're serving, right? Like you got to play around with it a little bit to check it out, but definitely engaging your family and your kids in living a life of purpose will make it so much more likely that they find those things accessible when they grow up. So with my son, he's a little bit too young to volunteer at some of the places that I do, a lot of work on, but that doesn't mean that I don't take the time to explain it to him. We also do a lot of drives for our real estate business and community on purpose. And I keep a lot of that stuff purposefully in my garage before I take it to wherever it's going so that I can explain to my son what that process is of donations. I remember one time he came into the house with a toy and I'm like, where did he get that toy from? And I said, that's not your toy. Where did that come from? And he goes, I got it from donation. I'm like, It's not a store in the in the garage. All that stuff is going somewhere, but it's all of these moments, right? He has a vocabulary even before he knows what it means of those words: donation, volunteer, serving, giving, things that a lot of kids they're just not exposed to that.
Yeah. And I love how you're incorporating it into your transactions with your clients
Mm,
too. And we do see this often where we start giving. So, as a company last year, we took on 25 days of giving between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And for me, it was connect with my clients, find out what's important to them, find that organization here or afar, if it's just a general donation type of thing, and go participate. And I love what you said about like, go try out some things. We did
mhm,
and I took my daughter with me. I have one still at home. We worked 5Ks. We did volunteering, sorry, for one of the local pet shelters. Just you name it. We did the Operation Christmas Child boxes. But again, it was just all of those things that helped her see what giving back means. And it also actually instilled some desire to give back within the community that follows me outside of real estate. So I did have future clients comment on, oh, I saw that you did that donation. Where did you know that we go to that church? Or did you know that we
mhm,
ran that race? That was the other thing. I did 2 5Ks and I saw past clients, current clients, friends, they're all running by, what are you doing here? So
mhm.
it is one of those things that I think it then sparks something inside of others to just start the wildfire of giving back. And that's where I see in the real estate business, you could look at it and say, oh, they do that donation drive or that thing to generate clients. I look at we do those philanthropic exercises not to generate clients, but to instill good, which then returns clients because it just shows
100%.
who we are.
When you talk about the authenticity piece, I think you can tell when people are not authentic in their giving and their serving, which by the way, as someone who runs a nonprofit, I'll take all your money. Like you don't want it, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. It's fine. You can still donate to our nonprofit, right? Like that, all of it does good, even if you're not doing it for the right reasons. But for us, community was not about something we did. It was about something we were. And there was not a way for us to engage in community through real estate without also giving back in that way. And so the two were never separate in our minds. We could not help families with something that is so important and get so entwined with them and who they were, and then just simply no longer be a part of their community. And that's why for us, everything that we do is based so much in the area that we serve, right? Because we want to make a big impact, and we think that we can do that in a lot of different ways. But the longer we've done it, the more clear it's become to others that it truly is just part of who we are. Sometimes people will use the word community to describe us before they would even say real estate. And to me, that's a compliment, right? I want to be a resource for them, no matter how it is that we can help them. We ultimately will use our skill and our expertise in the real estate space. And before, during, and after, we'll ensure that people are well situated in the communities that they live in.
Yeah. And I know you shared when we spoke a little while back about how originally this started with you giving back to different organizations before you
Mhm.
formed the community on purpose. What was it that made you say, let's go do something bigger? Like, this is why we get involved. This is why we do this piece. What sparked that? Let's go create our own nonprofit organization, other than your background in nonprofits.
Yeah, I think honestly, the driver was that it is so much of how I lead and live that I wanted other people to receive the gifts of what a life like that can be like. It is a very full life. It is, you're often pulled in many directions. I don't want to say different because they're very overlapped and aligned for me. But for me, I've always felt that there's so much opportunity around us if we just keep opening the doors and keep helping people to make their way on the journey of life and give where we can give and make a good choice instead of a bad choice and a smile instead of a frown. Like, I just think that our position on this earth truly is to do that, to leave whatever mark that we can. And so I was doing all of this organizing without a brand. This was just who we were. But I felt like the impact could be shared and it could be bigger if I brought more people along. I think I teach others how to create community, and this was a lesson in needing to lean on the community to create it. So it was not something that I could just do on my own. It really needed to have the support and, integration and implementation from other people who felt passionately about the work that we had done. And so in the first decade without the brand, it was so cool to see what kind of an impact we could make. I mean, we renovated the teen center at ICANN, which is an organization that provides free out of school programming for youth in Arizona. We renovated the shop closet, which provides education and employment opportunities for women who are in a long-term housing situation. We provide grants for organizations like Positive Paths and Amplify Voices that help to give a voice and educational opportunities for women. It's just, there have been so many things we've been able to do that once we were able to wrap a brand around it, I really felt like other businesses could plug into this nonprofit and run it alongside their business, whether it was real estate or otherwise, and say, we also want to be purpose driven. How can we do that? And here is like a model for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's great. It's like a facilitator for additional involvement. About how many organizations are you servicing under your brand?
We've probably helped maybe 23 organizations in the last couple of years. We have a handful of those that are on repeat rotation just as we continue to do more and more work with them. And then certainly as others come across and people, let us know about ones that are important to them, as long as they fit into those sort of general criteria for us, which is women in leadership and business and organizations supporting youth and families. Those are really the two big drivers for us, and where we think we can impact community the most is through strong families and strong women. And that idea of empowerment. So we want to be a place that people reach out to, just like in our real estate business, that even if we're not the answer for them, that we will find it. I just had somebody reach out from, gosh, I'm trying to remember where they were even from, the Midwest, and they had clients who had relocated out here to Sun Lakes, Arizona, and they were asking for some questions like where a handyman was, and they just had a couple, someone who could do some internet connection help at their house, and he randomly found us on the internet and reached out and just said, hey, I just have some questions. Some close clients and friends of ours moved out there and we're just looking to help them with these couple service providers. Will you help them? And it was like such a great opportunity for us to just make a connection with somebody and really make an impact. And he wrote a really kind review for us on Google just about making a connection with people and what a difference that can make. And I think that really speaks to the things that drive both our real estate business and our community work.
Yeah, absolutely. So congratulations on all of that
Thank you.
you're building and growing. It's so rewarding and it's inspirational for all of us to just continue, like you said, one small step at a time and just be on purpose around it. Because then it becomes something that you put on your calendar and you time block and you feel good when you go to bed at night. So let's transition to your third pillar. And I'm going to say the name Phil Jones. And if you don't know, you're probably Googling. However, Phil Jones wrote a book long ago, although more relevant in the real estate space more recently, Exactly What to Say. And Mindy is a certified Phil Jones instructor and coach, which caused you to build on purpose strategies. So tell us a little bit about that piece of your world. And then at the end of this, I need to find out how you're juggling everything for sure. So tell us, you've got a charity organization, a coaching company, and a real estate team. So tell us a little bit more about Exactly What to Say.
Yeah, so it definitely is a full life. You're right. There is lots of juggling, but honestly, the work that I've done through exactly what to say over the last decade or so has driven a lot of the clarity around all of my different businesses and even in my parenting world. Which is why I feel so passionately about helping other people not only identify the moments that matter to them most, but to prepare for them. It's amazing how much we kind of just wing in a day. And most of us are really good at lots of things, whether it's our job that we've been doing for a while or being a parent or whatever it might be. And so we just go thing to thing and we don't put a whole lot of thought into the conversations that we're having with people. And these are moments that really matter to us. And so, probably in about maybe 2017 or so, I was introduced to Phil through a marketing company that I worked with at the time. We're still clients of theirs. And they were doing a lot of internal and external coaching with that group. And it's probably the first time where I felt really empowered by and aligned with a coaching methodology. I had been exposed to a lot of script based methodology, especially in the real estate space. I do have a couple of different business backgrounds and so had experienced scripting in those industries as well, but probably not as heavy as I had in the real estate space. And I just didn't relate to it. I related to preparing for conversations and I related to having a plan. But the he said, she said conversation when the other person didn't have the same script class as you had, it just didn't make any sense and it didn't feel authentic. And so when I was exposed to Phil's work almost 10 years ago, so much of it was about setting the context, right? And understanding the context of other people. And so it really wasn't so much about exactly what to say, like a script book, but it was more about exactly what to ask. And so I really felt aligned to it. And then a few years ago, when the opportunity became available and he was hand selecting guides to really go deeper in the work and then to help people across all industries. I mean, we have guides who use this work in the family therapy space, in the teaching and training space, in the speaking space, in real estate, in insurance, in accounting. I mean, literally across the board, there is an opportunity to help people lean into curiosity, empathy, and trust in order to build stronger and better relationships. And the outcomes are endless, right? More sales, more ability to get your, outcome further, faster, ability to build greater relationships with people. And that includes in your family as well. It's truly changed the way that I communicate as a parent, as a leader, and it has given me the ability to coach others and help them learn that they don't need to overhaul their personality to be better at what they do. But if they can lean into curiosity and take time to think about what they're going to say before they say it and put as much work into the pre-brief as they do into the debrief, they can dramatically change their outcomes. And so it's been such a fun journey for me. And it honestly has just brought me so much clarity and comfort in the business that we were doing because it helped me see that we were on the right track in knowing how to serve people and ask really truly who are the people that we serve and what are the problems that we solve for them. But it's given me and the people in my organization a better way to communicate than I think most people are ever exposed to. And the gratitude that people feel when they feel empowered to speak from a place of curiosity and not judgment has been incredible.
Yeah. Well, I carry my own Wingers Anonymous card. I think I'm like a platinum member at this point, as many of us do in real estate. And
That's right.
I will tell you, some of the more impactful things for me through coaching and in working with clients is the ability to help people make decisions
Yeah.
based on how you phrase questions and how you make comments, because it gives them that feeling of owning their next
Mhm.
response with a little bit of a lead, right? Just
Yeah.
leading them to make the decision type of conversation versus I wonder what or why. Why is just one of
Hmm.
those words that it doesn't get us too far down the road. And so that's where I
Hmm.
think this line of thinking is truly impactful as we work with clients. And like you said, even in parenting, I feel like it's funny when you were talking about the real estate script. It's funny when they
Hmm.
teach you, okay, you say this and the client will say this, but then the client never says that. Your kid never says it either. Your kid hits you back with
No.
something that you never anticipated coming. And you're like, okay,
Yeah.
hold on. Let me go back to the book. Where's that in the book?
And I'm still learning every day, obviously, as we all are. But I think through this work, I have been able to improve my relationships for the better. And I think about there are things that people have struggled with their whole life in how to address or communicate, or things that make them anxious, or challenges that they've had in a personal or professional space, where if we can help them to slow down a bit and to identify some of these, we call them critical conversations. These are moments that happen on repeat. We know that they're going to happen because they've happened before. And how we show up to them could dramatically improve our outcome, whether it's personally or professionally. And if at any given time we are all working on, this handful of truly critical conversations, we can make such an impact. And I think, with my son, he's very strong willed. I mean, he is my kid. So as stubborn as I can get, he's probably twice as stubborn. But the other night, we were reading a book before bed, and I was sure that I had never read this book before. And he was sure that we had read it. And you think about how many times you get into this kind of a conversation with somebody where you are sure of your opinion and they are sure of yours. And what ends up happening is some form of an argument, right? There's some friction, and it could be between you and clients, it could be between you and a spouse, but there's two different perspectives. And before we can ever change somebody's perspective or their opinion, they have to first believe that there's even possibly, potentially, some other way to be, right? I mean, you can't go from here to here. You have to sort of like inch your way open, create enough curiosity with someone's willing to like look through. And then if they could look through, then they can decide for themselves if they want to change their mind, right? So we were in this situation, and after it resolved itself, it was so clear like how it relates to everything else that I do. But I'm like, we've not read this book. He says we have. I'm like, we haven't. We're getting nowhere. And then my son says to me, using one of the words from exactly what to say, which is, could it be possible? He says, could it be possible? And he's 6. So you can't tell me these are things that aren't accessible or they're too hard for people to learn, but these are very simple word adjustments that we can all make. He says, could it be possible that we read it, but you forgot? And even without realizing that he had used words from the book, right? After it resolved, I realized. But what happens in the moment is you have all these other emotions and energy inside of you, right? All I know is that when he said, could it be possible that you read it, but you just forgot? My immediate response, because these words speak to the part of your brain that just yes, no, easy, right? Was, well, yeah, it could be possible. That's it. Just a little bit, right? It's just a little bit. And that's all we're trying to do when we're talking to people. This helps for people who are having difficult political conversations, right? How relevant is that over the last few years? If people knew how to have civil discourse with each other, be able to talk to each other better. This happens with people trying to ask for better pay raises within their jobs, or better job titles, or more flexibility to take care of their families, right? There's so many applications, but this one small example at home where my whole emotions, my feelings, everything changed because he said, could it be possible that you read it, but just forgot? And I thought, yeah, it could be possible. And you know what? I read 3 chapters. And by the time I got to the 3rd chapter, I said, I don't remember chapter 1 and 2, but I absolutely remember chapter 3. And then how much easier was it for me to admit that I was wrong because he had given me a little bit of room. He
Right.
had given me a little room to discover that for myself. And it was just such a powerful lesson. And so this is why when you ask me, how do I balance it all? I integrate it all. I don't just learn this at work. I take it home. I talk to him about it. So then when I come into my team meeting the next day, I'm a better leader because I've already had this conversation. Everything that I do truly overlaps in itself. And I'm the one that gets the gift of all of it.
Right. Yeah. I love that because I'm envisioning you like peeking through when he said, "Could it be possible?" And here you come. And oh my goodness.
That's exactly right.
That's
It's such a safe space, right?
yes.
When someone
Yeah.
gives you that room, it's such a safe space to explore.
Yeah. I have made a note as you were talking to, like, what would you
Mm.
say are the top 2 or 3 phrases that you use consistently from the book that help you reestablish direction or help others give thought to something that maybe they wouldn't have
Sure.
considered? So could it be possible as one? So do you have a
Yeah,
couple
could,
others?
yeah, absolutely. Could it be possible is probably one of my favorite ones because again, I think it gives people the space, right? Just the space to explore. The other thing that I'd say is a lot of what we do has to do with being able to reframe. Because often what happens when people are having difficulty making decisions is that they've taken the information, whatever limited amounts of information that they have, and they've already built sort of a story around that piece of information. And so what happens is that when they then go into enter into a decision making process, they already are carrying sort of this framework, if you will, for any new information that's brought in during that process. So if you think about like a real estate transaction, for example, if they are going into negotiating an inspection report or they're going into negotiating price, whatever that might be, price for a seller, maybe inspection report for a buyer, they already have some of that armor on where the world has told them your job here is to like get the best deal or to do your best job or to show your knowledge or your strength by how you negotiate. So there's a lot of pressure to perform. And so often in those cases, our job is to help return them to neutral so that they can operate from the best part of their brain. I always tell the example of, when are running away from a bear, you know what you don't have to do when you're running away from a bear? You don't have
What?
to go to the bathroom
Right.
because your body and your brain, it like shuts down everything that's not necessary in the moment so that you can just put all your energy into what you need to do, which is escape. And so the same thing happens when people's emotions get there and they're pressure to perform and got to do a good job negotiating, got to make people proud, got to get a good deal, don't want to be embarrassed, all this kinds of stuff. They're not operating properly. And so to reset them kind of to more of a neutral space, we use the good news is all the time. And so before we present what the next steps are, before we present how we can negotiate through it, before we present what your options are, before we help you, it's always the good news is. The good news is we've got a counter and we've got the perfect spot for us to sit down and be able to negotiate next steps. The good news is we got this list of items that the buyer has sent over to us. This shows us that they truly want to move forward and that the pride of ownership that you felt in this home is something that's really important to these guys. Like the framework just allows people to return to neutral. So what we're doing is we're trying to help people make really good decisions for themselves. They get to define what makes a good decision for them. We just are there to help them with uncovering what that might be. So could it be possible is a great, what we call kind of a perspective changer. Like there might be other options out there. We might ask something of them, like where they came from versus where they're going. Lots of times when people are trying to help people make decisions, they move forward, right? Where do you want to go from here? What will your next step be? But sometimes we can gain a lot of context by asking a question like, when was the last time? When was the last time you did something like this? When was the last time you felt confident in making a decision? When was the last time you leaned on somebody? When was the last time you paid more for something that was important to you? When was the last time? So being strategically curious about their context then really sets the stage for you to propose other potential ways of moving forward. So those are probably some of my favorites. They're all pretty well integrated in what I do, but
Yeah. When was the last time you blank? Could it be possible that blank? And the good news is blank, right? We could use
that's
all
right.
of those
There's
back to
your
back.
stack.
There
Well,
you
and that's the beauty, right? So we have these cards, there's a card deck. And the beautiful thing about these, there's 32 words and phrases. If you literally can run them through the deck from the start to the end, you're obviously not going to do that in any kind of normal environment. But once you start to see these as tools in your toolbox, you realize one, how lazy we are with our communication. And so that's something that I talk about with my agents all the time. I was on a podcast this morning talking about networking and talking about what we call small talk, right? So, first of all, small talk is very important. It can literally be the thing that leads you to your next big opportunity. But we've already done ourselves a disservice by calling it small talk. It's big talk, right? So that's number one. But in that conversation, talking about networking, we talk about how lazy we are with our words, right? We go into a room of people that could carry unlimited potential for us. And we ask a question like, what do you do? Right? Which is the least door opening question possible. You're
Yep.
lucky if you get like a reading of their resume back in return. And so when you start to look at these words as tools, and you realize that you have a choice to either be lazy with your communication or to be on purpose with your communication, you can truly see the difference in the connections that you're able to make with people.
Yeah. I love that card stack box because what a great team
Mhm.
building exercise where you each have to take a card and I'm visualizing this. You each have to take a card
Yeah,
and come up with a statement about a current client that you have and just pass it around.
so
Because
many
again,
options.
like you said, scripting is important. It's knowing what to say versus more so than like the actual script. So for anyone out there that's listening this far into our show, if you want to make a comment in the comments, I will personally purchase the exactly what to say box cards from Mindy and we'll get
Love that.
those sent off to you because it is so incredibly important. One of my favorite things you're talking about is the good news is so those of you listening who know me know one of my favorite phrases is the silver lining. Let's look at the silver lining. And I will start
Mhm.
that with my kids if they come with something going on. I will start that with a client if I'm calling with news that might not excite them. I'll say, here's the silver lining, just like you said. It is a repair
Mhm.
addendum. They took the time to prepare it, so they still want the home.
Mhm.
Let's work with what we can work with. So
Yeah.
it's very much find the silver lining. There's always
Yeah.
one. There's
And
always one.
I used to say the silver lining all of the time. And then during COVID, I felt like I got stuck on it because there's some things that happen to people that are just so painful and difficult that it feels so difficult to tell them that there's something good that comes out of it, you know?
Mhm.
And so it was like, how do we communicate to somebody that it's about framing? And it's the same reason that you say the silver lining is to somebody is you're trying to say there could be potentially some bad in this, and yet there is some good. They may be unrelated, right? And I think that's what the good news is that separates the outcome from both the good and the bad. And it says you as a person get to frame this situation as a good and a bad, right? And it's like you
Mhm.
get to decide if you look at this. It's like getting a flat tire. Do you look at it as bad that you were delayed in going where you were going or you couldn't be there or whatever it was? Or do you wonder, what did I avoid? What accident was I going to be in? What else could have happened? Right. And do you choose to lean into the gratitude piece of what you might have been saved from because of that inconvenience? And I just think that's a muscle that we have to consistently be flexing. And that's really, behind the work that we do at exactly what to say. Like, this is not something that you master. It's that you don't just do it and then you're great at it and it's over. It's like yoga, it's like meditation, it's like gratitude. It's a practice of continually leaning into your curious muscles.
Yeah, it's all great. So, like I teased a little bit a few minutes ago, so you're building a real estate business or you're continuing to grow that space. You're
Yes.
leading a nonprofit. You're
Mhm.
master coach and with exactly what to say. You have a 6-year-old son. How
Hmm.
on earth do you and you use the word balance. I always say harmony. How do you create harmony with this without losing yourself? And this goes back to you working with your team as well. When you say one of
Hmm.
the biggest conversations you have to have is boundaries. How do you do all of that and offer yourself some boundaries?
I think that I allow the people in my world to always be teaching me something. And I allow myself to always be coachable and open because being in a leadership role or a parenting role, you can always see yourself as separate. I have to create the rules or create the structure or create the boundaries. If you look at it that way, you don't get to fully realize the benefit of all those people that you've brought into your space. And so for me, I'm constantly trying to see the people in my world as people who can help grow me and that I can learn from them. Even my son is like having a mirror held up to my face. I mean, there isn't one thing that comes out of my mouth that I think about how it sounds, how it would make me feel. Is that the way that I want to say it? Is that I want to teach him? It's like they're all teaching moments for me. And it's a two-way street, that teaching moment. And so I learned something from everybody. There's a girl on my team who has taught me so much about the power of what really good relationships look like, what really good friendships look like. And I been able to continue to grow as a leader in a way that feels more aligned. And I would say that I also have leaned into reestablishing what being gritty means. So I think my definition of grit growing up was just that I could handle anything that was thrown my way. I could get right back up. I don't know, you might call it resilient, right? I would never end up under a bridge. I would figure it out. I was agile. I was all of those things. But I think as I get older, grit to me means how well prepared am I when things get difficult? Being a mom, a single mom who runs three businesses, and I'm firmly planted in a sandwich generation. So I also have things that I take care of with my parents who live here in Arizona too. But when things have gotten difficult, I've been able to sit back and look at myself and just think, I'm getting through this okay. There might have been a time in my life where this might have been the thing to knock me down, and then I would have had to use that strength to get back up. But it didn't knock me down this time. And why is that? A combination of things: therapy, having good relationships around me, feeding into my son when I feel like maybe things are a little bit out of harmony, watching for those signs of being out of harmony and addressing it sooner than later, right? A lot of times we just blow past the signals and the signs that one of our buckets is draining from the bottom, or that the harmony or the balance is out of whack. We just keep going. And then we've gone too far that it's like, of course, you fell off the cliff. So before you can get back, you got to climb up to get off of the mountain that you fell off of. It's like, how do we stop it and adjust before we actually fall off the cliff? And I think that's what I'm really been focusing on in terms of my own personal harmony.
Yeah. So preparation versus resilience. It is interesting how preparation sets us apart in our real estate industry and
Hmm.
how it sets us apart as humans, right? The more prepared survive. That's why there's these doomsayers out there living in a dirt shack with 16 years worth of powdered food. But again, it's all in the preparation. So I appreciate that. I have to share one other thing, and then we'll wrap up that you shared with me that has become a practice of mine that you shared with me a couple of weeks ago. And you said, words either hurt or they help.
Mm.
And hearing you say that, and it is so impactful to me because I very much am like you in that I always look to learn from others. I consider myself very learning based. And just taking that, I have said that in my head since you've said that to me, no short
Mm.
of 250 times. because
I
it's
love it.
helped me choose the words with my family, choose the words with my friends, choose the words with my colleagues and with my clients. Because again, I have to ask myself, is what you're about to say helpful or hurtful? Not that it's like intentionally hurtful, but does it
Mhm.
advance us forward? So hurtful to me isn't like cussing you out. To me, hurtful
Mm-mm.
is this getting us to where we want to go by having this conversation or sharing this phrase or giving this description? And take that with you too. For those listening, is are all words are either helpful or hurtful, and self-check yourself. Always self-check yourself, because that has been hugely impactful for me. So I
No,
am,
thanks for sharing.
yes, I am grateful to be in one of your circles, because that means I'm doing something good. The good news is you're still here.
That's right.
And I know you offer workshops for others out there who want to become either certified or just take a workshop with you. We'd love to get something set up for our clients, as well as continue to promote you. So we'll get that information out to our listeners as you have opportunities available. And I just want to say thank you so much for being here. We have truly enjoyed having you as a guest and look forward to future conversations together.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you. This has been great.
Take care.
Bye-bye.